And then lastly, between Theseus and Phaedra. Phaedra is actually, her character in the movie is a combination of people. She is the oracle that prophesies that he's going to do wonderful things and um, save the people from the evilness that is Hyperion. She is also what we would assume is Ariadne, and it's kind of like they just have Phaedra's name in there rather than anything else, because the timeline would be Ariadne that would be there. It would not be Phaedra. He's not old at all. He's a very young man, still very handsome, and also Phaedra is very weak. Um, she has this gift that she traveled with three other priestesses, and they all went through a lot of trouble to make sure that her gift was protected. And if she ever had sex, then she would lose her vision completely. That is kind of how it works for her, how her gift from the gods works. But as soon as Theseus comes in the picture and he's just like, whatever, you can see stuff, but you can't do anything about it, so you're pretty much useless. She's like, okay, I'm gonna have sex with you, and I don't care. Even though this entire time I've, been sheltered and protected, I have my sister priestesses that have died to protect me. The other priestesses, after they were able to get her to escape, they were put into a really large metal bowl and essentially fried inside of it. But none of that really seems to matter. She's just like, well, whoop-de-doo, you don't care, so I don't care. And whatever you say works.
And just to add a little bit about Phaedra and back to the race card, neither one of us understood why she was Indian.
Yeah.
And just to, I think, balance it a little out, all the oracles were different races. So we think that's where it comes from, that, each oracle has a different race. But
they represent a different place.
Right. But
it seemed like that was honestly the only place in the movie where there was diversity with the oracles. And they were also highly sexualized. They, like, the last scene where you really see all of them together, they're doing this weird seance dance kind of thing.
Which is very sensual. And that's how they seduce the guards to come in.
And then they kill all of the guards.
Yeah.
And they're in red robes, and red is
a bit of a
the
symbol
color of fertility.
Yes.
And
sexuality.
Right. And for them to be virgins and to wear red, which, white, is assumed purity and virginity, but
red, on the other hand,
it's the complete opposite.
It's like a seductress automatically.
Right.
And the first time that Theseus and Phaedra even meet, they're surrounded by a pool, and Phaedra goes to get water, but she notices that Theseus isn't drinking anything and sees a vision of him saving everybody from Hyperion. But when she goes to give him water, rather than, what I would assume most other people would do and like scoops him out and pour it into his mouth, she saves the water in her mouth and leans over and is nearly kissing him and just slowly dripping water into his mouth. From her mouth. And then
it's very sexualized. And
it is.
It's all in slow motion.
It's all in very slow motion.
Yeah.
Even their entry as oracles, when all the slaves are looking at, or all the people that are captured are looking at them, and they explain, one of the men asks the guards, who is that, or who are they? And they're like, oh, they're the oracles, they're the virgin oracles. And they make sure to say virgin before they say oracles in every line. But it's a very sensualized process. And for them to just even walk across the pool, it's so sexualized.
They're swaying, and as soon as they go into like a room where they're kind of sequestered off, they take off all of their clothes, and they just kind of have like a little band that's also red, that's a bra, and the skirt that has very high slits, so their legs are out, and they go into their seance. They're swaying and they're going in circles and singing, and it's just a little bit too sexual, which makes even as an average moviegoer, it would make me think, oh, they're not virgin oracles. They're just saying that because it sounds nice. And even in the scene where Theseus and Phaedra are together, it makes it look like they actually have time to stop when they're supposed to be on this grand journey to go defeat Hyperion because he's such an evil man. They have time to stop and have sex, which makes no sense. If you are supposed to be focused on doing this, there are gods that are coming to help you. There are gods that have died to help you, but you have time to go take a nap and then have sex. And then everybody wakes up and they're like, oh, you're done? Cool. And then they go and
continue their quest.
Yes. And then she, again, is quite useless after that because she doesn't even have vision. So she's just a woman on the trip in a pretty dress.
She continues to pray.
Yes.
Her priestess duty, but her oracle duty is lost. But it's really confusing as why she chose to suddenly give up that power. Alright, so now for my part, I will basically close this discussion, and I really want to talk about basically how incomplete the story is, how the movie is basically not even an adaptation, but the director's way of creating his own world that he thinks Theseus would live in. When we look at Mary Renault, I feel like she's definitely her own modern adaptation, did a better job of using as much of the Greek mythology to her advantage to create a very complete story of Theseus from childhood until his future. Mary Renault, her own characterization of Theseus as this kind of child searching for his true self and what his real purpose is in life, and how he is scared, but as he grows out of this scaredness, he becomes very confident and ready to fight the world. And he's very praised as a child because his grandfather is a king and his mother is this high priestess, whereas in the movie of Immortals, Theseus is a peasant. His mother is a lowly servant for the temple, and basically they are discriminated against. But still he continues to hold that confidence and cockiness that Mary Renault wrote about for Theseus. But they did get a few things right in the movie, and one of the things they got right were the usage of names. However, they did use Helios as a name of a general, but we're pretty sure Helios was used as a name for a god. So we are still very much confused if in the culture of Greek, did they use God and goddesses' names to name their children, or was the general as Helios supposed to represent something? We were still unsure as much as we tried to keep rewatching the movie.
And they also kind of messed up with the timeline a little bit because they kept referring to everyone that was not part of Hyperion society as the Hellenics, which would not make sense as Helen was not even in existence yet. She was part of the Trojan War, and that came many, many years after.